Grace AC Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, His Honorable bkgoswami Maharaj ki. Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Nice to see all of you. Welcome. So our program schedule is we are going to have a class now on Jagannatha Rathayatra. Why do we celebrate? What is the importance of this form of Krishna that we are seeing here? And His Honorable bkgoswami Maharaj will be giving the class. And after absorbing our mind in the importance of Sri Jagannatha Rathayatra, immediately after class, we'll have a procession starting from here. We'll be escorting Sri Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra Devi to their car downstairs. And then we'll have an aarti there. And then there'll be the entire procession. And also during the entire Jagannatha Rathayatra procession, there'll be a drama performance, which is actually based on Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which actually talks of the different aspects of that entire Jagannatha Rathayatra Leela. So it will be very nice. And we'll do the entire drama performance, and then we'll come back, and then we'll have our Jagannath Puri Mahaprasadam feast. So today the entire Sunday feast is actually prepared with the theme of Sri Jagannath Puri. So after the entire Rathayatra procession, we'll have a wonderful dinner prasadam feast for everyone. So that's our schedule for this evening. So again, thank you everyone for coming. Who are here for the first time? Can you quickly see? Okay, welcome, welcome. So those are here for the first time. We would like to especially welcome all of you. Thank you so much for coming. And we do have a guest book right where I'm pointing. Please leave your email and phone number so we can stay in touch with you, update you about the upcoming festivals. Or near the prasadam, I'll be standing at the table. You can also leave your address and phone number so we can stay in touch with you. Okay? So without further ado, we would like to move on to our next part, class. And immediately after class, we escort Jagannath downstairs and we have the Rath Yatra. Okay, so please everyone, if you can kindly come forward all the way front for the class. We'll have more devotees coming during the class, so we want to leave space behind so they don't have to stand outside the temple. So please everyone, please come all the way till here. Please everyone. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Hare Krishna.
Okay, let's chant Jai Jagannath first, if that's all right with everybody. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath. Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra. Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra. Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra. Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath, Jai Jagannath. Jai Jagannatha, Jai Jagannatha, Jai Jagannatha, Jai Jagannatha. Jagannatha Swami, Nayana Patagami, Nayana Patagami Baba to me. Jagannatha Swami, Nayana Patagami, Nayana Patagami Baba to me. Jai Jagannatha, Jai Jagannatha, Jai Jagannatha, Jai Jagannatha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo, Hare Bo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravitakacharya. Also Teta Sitashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Chalanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Anantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Maturadam Ki Jai, Jagannatha Swami Ki Jai, Yamunamari Ki Jai, Shrimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees, all glories the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste, Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharane, Nivashesha Shunyavadi, Paschatya Jeja Tarne, Som Gana Timiranda Shah Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshurun Meditam Yena, Tasmai Shigurave Namaha. So happy Rathayatra to everybody. So in a half an hour, we're going to start the Rathayatra ceremony. So I'm going to try to fill in as much as possible information about Lord Jagannath, why he looks the way he does, what the Rathayatra is, what the esoteric reason of Rathayatra is, and what the exoteric reason that Lord Jagannath looks like he looks like. All that within a half an hour or less. Let's see if we could do that. So, let's first of all talk about the Rathayatra, which just 2 days ago took place in Jagannath Puri. So the Rathayatra ceremony that we're going to be observing today is part of a whole process. What do I mean by process? There's many steps in a process. And the first step in the Rathayatra ceremony in Jagannath Puri is called the Snana Yatra. Snana Yatra means the bathing ceremony of Lord Jagannath. And so literally, the deities of Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. For those of you who don't know, Jagannath is Krishna, Jagannath, the Lord of the universe. Balaram is Baladev is Balaram, and Subhadra is Subhadra. Yoga Maya, the internal potency of the Lord. Okay, so the deities are bathed, and after the deities are bathed, somehow or other, it is apparent or perceived that the deities got sick. Now, we know Krishna has a spiritual body, Satchidananda Vigraha, there's no question of getting sick. But Krishna apparently is getting sick, and he's put in a separate room off the altar for 14 days. Now, there's a lot of reasons for this. One reason is to draw the attention of the devotees to Krishna. Like if you have someone who's sick, dear relatives, then you're always going to be thinking of them, praying for them, sending them good get better cards, sending them flowers, whatever. Your consciousness is going to be fixed on them. And so when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, his consciousness was so fixed on Lord Jagannath, whom he couldn't see, that he actually left Jagannath Puri and went to a nearby village because he was feeling so much separation. Because as they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. So it actually increases the intensity of the devotee's devotion to not see the deities for 2 weeks. I can imagine if we couldn't see Radhagolokananda here for 2 weeks, then it would increase the intensity of devotion. Actually, one time I traveled back from overseas and I thought I had COVID and I couldn't come to the temple for more than 2 weeks. And I was just fixed on my computer screen, looking at the deities, of course, because we're on the internet. So anyway, so that's one reason why Lord Jagannath is apparently sick. Another reason is that they actually refurbished the deities. But the real reason is that Lord Jagannath is making believe he is sick. And the reason he's making believe he is sick is he wants some quality time with his wife, who is Lakshmi. Now, most of you are not married to Lakshmi, so you wouldn't need a whole 2 weeks. Maybe an hour or two. But, so during this period of time, he's having what they call QT, quality time with his wife. He starts to remember his girlfriends in Vrindavan. Don't try that with your wife. Why? Because Krishna's wives are expansions of the gopis in Vrindavan. They're actually the same personalities who expand, and they marry Krishna in Dwarka or in other places, but they actually have their palaces in Dwarka. So, therefore, Krishna is looking at Satyabhama and he remembers Radharani. And even at night, Krishna is crying out the names of the gopis while he is sleeping next to his wives. That'd be quite upsetting, I think, for any of you ladies, right? Like if your husband was crying out, "Oh, Priya, we were so good in the university together." Because nowadays you just text on the phone, which is different. So, anyway, so Krishna wants to be with the gopis. So after 14 days, he thinks, I have enough time with my wife. I want to be with the gopis. And so he leaves the temple, the Jagannath temple, along with Baladev and Subhadra, also want to go to Vrindavan. And so as they're leaving, there's many ceremonies that take place. Of course, when Lord Jagannath is taken out of the temple, he's bounced from one cotton pad to another. Those cotton pads are called tulis, and he's carried by silken ropes. And he mounts the cart, and King Prataparudra, the king of Jagannath Puri, sweeps the road and sweeps the cart in front of Lord Jagannath. So he mounts the cart, and he goes in this procession to the Gundicha temple. The Gundicha temple had been previously cleansed to allow Lord Jagannath to enter the temple. The Gundicha temple represents the heart and soul of a devotee, which has to be clean in order to receive Krishna, right? Because Krishna doesn't want to manifest himself in a dirty place. So he enters, goes to the Gundicha temple, and there's many pastimes when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present, how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sometimes had to push the cart with his head when the cart wouldn't move, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was addressing Krishna, feeling in the mood of Radharani, saying, "You are the same Krishna, and I am the same Radharani, and I wish to enjoy with you beneath the Vatasi on the banks of the Jamuna." So in this way, many loving exchanges occurred. So the whole process of the Rathayatra festival, which we're celebrating today, is Krishna going to Vrindavan. And all of you who are assisting, that means pulling the ropes or chanting or following the cart, are helping Krishna in that endeavor of going back to Vrindavan. So you're serving the gopis. You're serving the topmost residents of the spiritual world. Isn't that exciting? So you're going to get an opportunity to do that. So Krishna goes there, and so he's enjoying, and when Lord Chaitanya and his associates took Krishna, Lord Jagannath, to the Gundicha temple, they actually entered into the Vrindavan mood. Normally, Lord Chaitanya is very serious, and his associates, they're very, very serious. But when they went to Gundicha, they became very playful like boys. They would even have water fights. Lord Nityananda, Dvaitacharya, and others would have water fights in the Indradunya Sarovara or Narendra Sarovara, which is at the Gundicha temple. And they were enjoying in the mood of Vrindavan. Krishna was in Vrindavan along with Baladev and Subhadra. So what happens, that Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, she gets very upset because her husband hasn't come back. And so after 5 days, she's fed up. So after 5 days, she actually takes her associates, rides a cart, another cart. This is Lakshmi's, and she rides a cart, and she actually goes to the Gundicha temple and doesn't enter it. She doesn't see Lord Jagannath, but she beats up all the associates of Lord Jagannath, and they're with sticks. And of course, this is an act. Bring my husband back. What have you done with my husband? But Lord Jagannath doesn't pay any attention to this. You would think that if his wife was angry, but she can't go into Vrindavan. Why can't she go into Vrindavan? Because Lakshmi is very attached to an opulent way of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Vrindavan means you have to let your hair down, metaphorically, allegorically. In other words, you have to forget that Krishna is God. You have to forget that you're worshiping God in opulence, like forget all sorts of things like Om Jaya Jagadisha Hari, Jaya Jagadisha Hari. You have to forget that. And you just have to become an intimate associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lakshmi doesn't want to do that. In fact, she tried to enter Vrindavan another time, performed austerities for thousands of years, but could not enter Vrindavan. So she's unsuccessful. She goes back, and Lord Jagannath doesn't go back for another till the 9th day after the Rathayatra ceremony, so another 5 days after that. So, and that's the return yatra, the return yatra. So we're not going to celebrate the return yatra today because we want Lord Jagannath to stay in Vrindavan. How about that? We're only going with him there. And so, by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, we are actually directly associated with Krishna in Vrindavan. So there's the same thing as going with Lord Jagannath to Vrindavan. Now, okay, that's one part of the class. Now, I said that I would mention to you why Lord Jagannath looks like he looks like. Okay, 2 stories about that. One is the exoteric story. Now, this is a very interesting. Exoteric means what everybody knows. And esoteric means what you're not supposed to know, which I'm going to tell you everything you wanted to know, but were afraid to ask, after I tell the exoteric story. So the exoteric story, very quickly, because this is quite a long story. Once upon a time, there was a king. His name was Indradyumna. And he had heard that there was a deity of Nilamadava who had unexcelled beauty. And he wanted to find that deity and see the deity. So what did he do? He sent his Brahmin associates everywhere to look for the deity. So they couldn't find the deity. They looked here, they looked there. One of his associates stayed a little longer out looking for the deity. His name was Vidyapati. And this Vidyapati, he was wandering here and there. And finally, he came to a village of what we would consider to be very low-class people. People who ate and kept pigs. It's called Shabaras. So he took shelter in a house with it was owned by Vishvasu, Shabara, and Vishvasu had a daughter named Lalita, which is actually a nice spiritual name. You have Lalita and Vishaka, the associates of Lord of Srimati Radharani. So, anyway, so he noticed while he was in this house that this Vishvasu was going out every night and coming back the next day, and he was smelling really nice from sandalwood and camphor and everything like that. And in the meantime, he had married Lalita somehow or other. Even though he was a Brahmin, he fell in love. That happens. So he asked his wife, Lalita, why is your father going out and coming back nicely smelling the next day? And Lalita said, I'm not supposed to tell you. It's a secret. And he said, okay, since it's a secret, you're supposed to tell me. You know, secrets are meant to be shared. So she eventually tells him, my father's going to worship Nilamadava. And Vidyapati becomes really excited and thinks, you know, I want to see this Nilamadava because I promised the king I would actually discover where Nilamadava is. And so he bothers his father-in-law, Vishvasu, and he says, I want to see the deity, I want to see the deity. And Vishvasu says, no, 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 no. Finally, Lalita nags her father and convinces her father to take Vidyapati to see the deity. Okay. So, but Vishvasu binds Vidyapati's eyes so the Vidyapati can't see where on the hill the deity is. But Vidyapati is more intelligent. He's a Brahmin. So he has Lalita sew a little section of his cloth where he can keep some mustard seeds. And as he's walking on the path blindfolded, he's surreptitiously, means secretly, throwing off some mustard seeds. And you know when you throw up mustard seeds after it rains, you're going to have a whole bunch of mustard plants. So he keeps throwing them off, throwing them off, throwing them off. And they arrive at the top of the hill where Nilamadeva is being worshipped. And he sees the deity and he goes, wow! He's amazed with this deity. And in the meantime, Vishvasu, his father-in-law, is out gathering flowers and roots and everything like that to serve the deity. Okay, very nice. So he takes darshan of the deities, but then he notices on a nearby tree, there's a crow who actually falls into the lake that's right there. And this crow, after he falls into the lake, takes a spiritual body and he goes back to Godhead. Pretty good. So Vijapati has a great idea, doesn't he? He thinks, that's an easy way back to Godhead. I'd probably take that way too, you know. I'd dive into that lake right away. So he gets up on the tree. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then he hears a voice. And the voice says, no, you're supposed to find Nilamadeva and guide the king to Nilamadeva. Okay. So the Shabara comes back, and the Shabara hears a voice from Nilamadeva, and Nilamadeva says, okay, I'm supposed to be worshipped by the king from now on. And so he gets really upset, so he brings Vijapati down the hill, and he ties him up hand and foot. You know, somehow or other his wife is feeding him and taking care of the bodily needs. I don't know how it happened. Poor guy. And then Lalita convinces her father to let him go. So he immediately goes to where the king is, King Indradunya, and informs him about where Nilamadeva is. So they all come back, all the king's horses and all the king's men, and Vijapati, of course. And they climb the hill, they follow the mustard plants all the way up the hill. And what do they find? Nothing. So the king gets very upset, and he basically gets upset with all the villagers, including Vishvasu. And he thinks, you know, they're cheating me. But then he hears a voice from the sky that says, I will not be seen as Nilamadeva anymore, but I will be seen as Daru Brahman. So Daru Brahman means Brahman wood. Because Krishna, let me explain wood, because the deities are made of wood, obviously. But Krishna can transform matter to spirit and spirit to matter. And Prabhupada gave the example of an expert electrician who can change the electricity from heating to cooling or back and forth again. So Krishna can do that. So when we install the deity, we make the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead according to the Shastras. Therefore, Krishna actually appears in that particular form. He transforms matter to spirit. Although it's wood, it's not wood. He's not wood. He's Satchidananda Vigraha. So then the king goes back, and he builds a temple. And the temple is like 60 cubits high, 30 cubits. Cubit, that's very long, to give an idea. And it's made of stone. And he wants to install a kalash or pinnacle on the top of the temple. Then he wants to have Lord Brahma consecrate the temple. So what he does is he goes to Lord Brahma's place, which is called Brahmaloka. And during Brahmaloka, time is experienced differently than it is in this planet. So like one moment in Brahmaloka is a year, actually, on this planet. So he goes to Brahmaloka, and he has to wait for a little period of time. And so then he comes back not with Lord Brahma at that time, but the construction had been covered by sand. And there were two kings who appeared after him. One was named Suradev, and the other was Galamadeva. And Galamadeva uncovered this particular construction, the temple, and he said that I had done it. He had done it, not me. He had done it. And so basically there was an argument between Indradunya and Galamadeva. And there was a crow, special crow called the Bhushandi crow, who lives for millions of years, who always chanting what name? Does anyone know? Ram Ram. That's right. And the crow said, no, it is Indradunya who has actually constructed this. So therefore Indradunya was revealed as the person who constructed the temple, and he asked Lord Brahma to consecrate the temple for the later installation of the deities. And Lord Brahma said, I can't consecrate the temple because it's already consecrated. It's holy ground because it's Jagannath Puri. Actually, originally it was called just Jagannath. Later on it got the name Puri. So the original place is actually Jagannath, or Nilachal. So Lord Brahma put a flag on top of the temple, and he gave the benediction, anyone who sees the flag gets liberated. So after some time, King Indra Jr. got discouraged again, thinking, when am I going to see the deity? You know, it's nice we got a temple here and a nice flag, but when is the deity going to appear? And so he decided to fast and give up his life. And as he was fasting, actually the first night, he didn't have to fast that long, he had a dream, and Lord Jagannath appeared to him and said, don't worry, I will come floating in the sea as Daru Brahman, as a piece of wood. And so that morning, the king went to the sea and he found this big piece of wood with all the signs of Lord Vishnu, a conch, disc, lotus, and club. And so he tried to move it, and he couldn't move it. And so the Lord said at that particular point, bring my servant Vishvashu and place a golden chariot in front of this piece of wood. So he brought his servant a golden chariot and started chanting Hare Krishna, or the names of God, like Jai Jagannath. And then they were able to mount the chariot and have the wood mount the chariot and bring the piece of wood to the palace. In the meantime, Lord Brahma established the deity of Lord Nrsingadev in the temple. So Indra Jr. called for many expert sculptors to try to sculpt this, and every time a sculptor came, they broke all their implements. And so he didn't know what to do. Finally, an old sculptor appeared. It's described he was Vishvakarma. Some versions say he was Krishna himself. And he said, I can do it in 21 days if you don't interrupt me. So he said, okay, close the temple, put the deities inside, and he heard the chip, 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 chip as the sculptor was sculpting the deities. But after 14 days, he didn't hear anything. And so what happened is he wanted to go and see what was happening, and all of his associates and Brahmins said, don't do it, it's going to be inauspicious. But his wife said, do it. Sorry. She said, do it, and he did it. And there were unfinished deities there, what he considered to be unfinished deities, and he thought, now I have made such a big offense that I should fast till I die. So he actually started fasting until he died. And then he was informed by Lord Jagannath in his dreams. He said, I am eternally in this particular form. And even though you don't see my hands and legs and everything like that, I have transcendental senses. Angani yasha shakaran driyadri timanti. And my devotees will always see me as Shaima Sundara when they look at me. So the king became very satisfied, and he prayed to Lord Jagannath for some benedictions. And the benedictions he asked for were that in the future, I will not have any children. That's an interesting benediction. The reason he asked for that is because generally, many times in India, people who take charge of temples want to give the temples to their children. And the temples sometimes are sold, or the temple property is sometimes sold. The king also asked for a benediction. Let your doors only be closed for 3 hours a day, Lord Jagannath, so people can see you the rest of the time. And then he said, let your fingers never be dry. Let you be eating all day long. So in this way, Lord Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra appeared in the world in that particular form. Now, okay, we got 5 more minutes left. So now I'm going to describe why Krishna wanted to appear in that form. You know, unfinished deities, okay, we understand that. But nothing happens without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's not that King Hendrik Jr. walked in just because he walked in on the sculptor. It was the sculptor and Krishna's desire that he be in that form. Now why? Okay, let's describe, and this is actually the esoteric reason and indicates Lord Jagannath's mood and why you see him with these big eyes, and Subhadra with big eyes, and Baladev with big eyes, and their hands appear to be shrunken up. This is a very quick story. Once upon a time, Krishna was in Dwarka, and while Krishna was in Dwarka, as I mentioned before, his wives would continually be thinking about Krishna's associates in Vrindavan, because Krishna would be talking about his associates in Vrindavan. He couldn't keep his mind off of them. So they wanted to find out about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And certainly Krishna was not going to tell them about it. And it would have been too ecstatic for Krishna to talk about it. So Krishna wasn't there, and Baladev wasn't there, but they decided to ask Rohini. Now, Rohini is Balaram's mother. Balaram is known as Rohini Nandana. So they asked Rohini, please tell us, because she was there in Vrindavan. She's one of Vasudev's wives, as was Devaki, but she was in Vrindavan taking care of Baladeva and Krishna, along with Yashodamai. So they asked her, please tell us about some of these pastimes. You saw the killing of the demons, you saw, of course she didn't see the dancing with the gopis, but obviously. So you saw all this, so tell us about Krishna's marvelous pastimes, attractive pastimes. So she took them all in a room, and she shut the door, and she posted Subhadra Maharani at the door. And she said to Subhadra Maharani, guard the door. Don't let anyone listen. Don't you listen. You know, what happens when someone tells you not to listen? Same thing. If someone tells you it's a secret, I got to know it, like that. So don't listen. Don't peek inside. Just because you're younger, you're supposed to obey us. You know, that's the etiquette. So she was posted at the door, and then they started talking about the Vrindavan pastimes. And she put her ear to the door, or opened the door or cracked, one of the two things. And guess what happened? Because she has a spiritual body, it's not like us, there's a duality between the body and the soul. With Subhadra, Baladev, and Krishna, they are their bodies, they are their soul. Their body is Satchidananda Vigraha. Our body is Asat, Nirananda, isn't it? And it's miserable. Anyway. So what happened is that her body manifested her emotions. I mean, just like sometimes when we feel real emotional, we'll put our hands up like this, or go like that. But the body doesn't really change shape, it just like flexes a little bit. But if we had a body that could completely express our emotions, guess what? Our hands would sometimes shrink up, or when we were dancing in kirtan, they reached the ceiling. That's why you can't really express the full range of spiritual emotions while you have a material body, because you die. It's not possible. So Subhadra expressed that range of spiritual emotions, her arms shrunk up, eyes open wide, because it was so ecstatic. I mean, you can imagine if we were hearing, or if I was hearing, you were hearing about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan directly from Rohini, then, wow. And you probably, too much ecstasy. Actually, Lord Chaitanya said one time, he said, if I actually loved Krishna, I wouldn't be able to live. So just the fact that I'm walking around, of course, Lord Chaitanya didn't have a material body. So then, who walks by but Baladev and Balaram? And he sees the same thing, puts his ear to the door, he's curious. Same thing, similar thing happens to him. And then, obviously, the same thing happens to Krishna. Now, why are they manifesting those symptoms? Those are the symptoms of vipralamba. Vipralamba means intense separation from Krishna or Krishna's devotees, like Krishna feels intense separation from his devotees too. Not only the devotees feel intense separation from Krishna. So these are the symptoms manifest. So Lord Jagannath, is Baladev and Subhadra, they are Vipralamba, intense emotion deities. Does everybody understand? That's Krishna in an intense emotional mood. Like when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Jagannath Puri, sometimes even his arms would shrink up like that. Became like a tortoise when he was at the Tailinga gate, with the cows that type come from Tailinga, sorry, it was near the Singadwara gate. And sometimes his arms would become very much elongated, many cubits long, when he was in the ocean and feeling ecstasy and separation. So this is a spiritual body, a spiritual form, one thing we cannot imitate. So when we are bringing Lord Jagannath to Vrindavan today, we should be thinking of the ecstasy that he's experiencing with his big wide eyes, the ecstasy that he's experiencing because he's finally going to Vrindavan. And that's the esoteric reason for why Lord Jagannath looks like Lord Jagannath. So thank you very much. We don't have time for questions, so we're going to proceed with the Rathayatra ceremony. Krishna's given us nice weather. I was praying. So, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, Jai Jagannath, Jai Baladev, Jai Subhadra Maharani ki Jai. And Aditya Narayan, you have any announcements? Give Aditya Narayan Prabhu the microphone.
Hare Krishna. So let's thank first His Holiness bkg Goswami Maharaj for enlightening us on Sri Jagannath. His Holiness bkg Goswami Maharaj ki. Okay. So again, we'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming. So nice to see all of you today. Anyone here for the first time? Okay, we have few families. Welcome. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I think I lost. Hare Krishna. It's on, man. Okay, so welcome everyone. Those who are here for the first time, we would like to warmly welcome you. During Prasadam, I'll be standing there. If you can please stop by, we can exchange contact information. Festivals. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us. Our program now is going to be, we are going to have like a procession. We are going to have Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra Devi. So there will be devotees carrying Jagannath. So they will go first. There will be a kirtan group following them. And then we want everyone to join the procession. And Jagannath, Baldev, Subhadra will go downstairs onto the cart. And then we'll have the first arti there. We'll have arti of Jagannath. And then the procession starts. And before the procession, we have a wonderful dance performance right in front of the cart. And there's also drama at different stages as the Rathayatra is proceeding. Okay? And as soon as you go downstairs and it's hot and humid, we have water there. So if you're at the school building, which is going to serve as our Gundicha temple. So we'll have some drinks for you there also. But please stay hydrated. It's very hot and humid today. Okay. And yes, I would like to thank the devotees who have sponsored the feast today and sponsored different aspects of the festival. So the feast is sponsored today by also, the feast is sponsored by Bhavani Lagadapati. Are you here? I talked to one person. No, okay. Nitya Sri Lakshmi Shankar Naidu Pujit Shrejita. I hope I got that right. Very well. Okay. Also, the feast is sponsored by Battu Gopal Prabhu and Mother Guru Bhakta in honor of their departed parents. I'd like to thank them. And the Artik is sponsored by Gajendra Prabhu and family. And also by Megha and Sahib. Are you here? Okay. And we also have Rakesh Prabhu. Just send me a message right now. Yes. Thank you so much Prabhu, for sponsoring. Yes. And the flowers are sponsored by Kiran Mataji. Is she here? And their family. Okay. So if anyone would like to sponsor any aspect of the festival, there's always sponsorship opportunities. The feast is $301, the Artik is $108, and the flowers are $251 for the whole festival. So if you'd like to sponsor any aspect of the festival, I'll be downstairs near the Prasam table. You can stop by the table. Okay. So thank you so much. Now everyone can stand up, and then the Jagannath deities will proceed first, and then the Kirtan, and then please everyone join us in the procession as we go downstairs. Shri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Devi ki. Shri Jagannath.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It happened this morning too, and I just turned it off. Strange. I mean, it's going in there. Hare Krishna. Anyway. I don't know why it did that. We'll have to look at it later. Anyway, I think we can
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.